You ready for this stat? So 57% of Gen Z in the US want to be influencers. That is their career goal. Now, this was written about in The Economist in October of 2024. And you might say, well, why is The Economist writing about this? Because this could have a big impact on the economy as a whole, and therefore you. And The Economist is not really keen on this idea. In fact, they ended their article very bluntly with the statement, too many people want to be social media influencers. So I think that kind of explains how they feel about this. So how will this dream affect our economy and possibly your financial future? We are going to take a look at that here, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to see what it means for your money, whether you're Gen Z or whether you're the baby boomer generation. We all need to look into this. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. That is what we'll talk about for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And hopefully you find it interesting. We need to be always forward looking when it comes to the economy, right? Always kind of seeing what could be happening. So for any of you who are new, welcome. We're happy to have you. For returning folks, happy to have you back as well. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And for anybody who is new, I'm Lisa. I've been a financial advisor for over 14 years, and I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. So buckle up. We're going to talk a lot about this. So what does social media influencer really mean? Now, if you're of an older generation and don't really go on all the different social media platforms, there are people on social media. You choose one, there's people on there who are making money from creating videos like the one you are watching. I do not make money from creating these videos. I want it to be educational, but there are plenty of people who make money doing this. And they can range from being experts in a certain field like beauty, makeup, decorators, tax people, you name it, it's all across the board. And they could be creating videos and content. You consume it and they get paid from the platform they're on, from sponsors, all this stuff. And that's how people make money. And it's a very booming business. And who wouldn't want to do this? It sounds amazing. You get to sit in front of a camera, create the content you want, and put it out there, and you're famous, quote unquote famous. You get followers, you get to help people. All of that sounds amazing. And really you're a small business owner, right? Because if you are running your own operation, who's telling you what to do? Nobody. You're listening to your followers. You're listening to where the trends go. And so a lot of the Gen Zers grew up with this kind of blooming career path, and they all want to do it. And I don't really blame them. Would you trade a 9-to-5 to have your own business, create content that you enjoy, have fun doing it, and put it on the internet and get paid? A lot of people would say yes, I would trade that in. Just as a funny side note, I saw a funny meme that said, Dolly Parton really screwed us up when she said 9-to-5. She should have sang 10-to-2. So I thought that was a really good, take on people don't want to work anymore or don't want to work that many hours anymore, which I get for sure. But I thought that was funny. All right, so let's see if we think that the social media influencer phenomenon can hold, and does that hurt our economy ultimately? Well, like I said, it is appealing to people. They have flexible hours, they have unlimited income potential, there's no boss, other than maybe contracts that they've got with people, but they can be used to market products, they get free products to try, they get to be part of the new trends that are going on. And it's definitely a shift in the way marketing is happening, because marketing used to be on television and that kind of thing, and now it's a lot online validation, brand, personal branding, that kind of stuff is a big part of it. And so that is extremely appealing for this younger generation who really sees the drudgery of people having to go into the office and do work and work for the man, and just doesn't seem that appealing to them. And remember, a lot of them, were kind of coming up during COVID, and they saw people working from home, and they're like, well, why can't I do that? And those opportunities are starting to dwindle a bit because companies want people back in the office. So it could be an interesting shift of what's happening. Now, there are obviously some downsides of this, as if you are a parent and you are talking to your child who's 20 years old and says that they want this to be their career path. Here are some things you could tell them, which is only about 4% make over $100,000 a year. And, that's obviously 100,000's a lot, but only 4% of them. So how many are making 0 or 10,000 or 20,000? And is that enough to really live off of? Probably not. So as we know, you can have a side passion project, that's fine. But is that ever really going to turn into something to take over your real job? It possibly couldn't. AI is getting more and more sophisticated. It could start taking over that influence market a bit. We don't know. We just don't know what's capable for it. Financial instability. So I hear a lot, I watch a lot of YouTube, I watch a lot about beauty and makeup and that kind of stuff. And a lot of the ladies I listen to talk about how they have to kind of keep following the trends and what videos are getting views and is their subscription base growing and that kind of stuff. And a lot of those things are not necessarily in your control. I mean, there are certain things you can do to get more clicks and to really analyze this, but it depends on your audience size, it depends on the brand that you have, and it can create some financial instability. I am sure many of these ladies that I watch probably don't have a real regular income. They get a contract here, a contract here, a contract here, things are going good, and then they go for 3 months without some kind of brand endorsement or product contract or something like that. And, you have people click onto your links and you get paid revenue from those purchases that they make. But what if people don't click on them for 2 months? You don't have a revenue coming in. And so it does create some instability. And if you haven't dealt with that instability, it could be really bad for your finances overall. You could make 200,000, but if you made it all in the first 3 months and didn't save any of it, now we've got an issue, right? So that's one other issue. And also I feel like the consumer is getting more and more wary of these influencers. In the makeup world, there's been talk about different brands really pushing it too hard on taking care of their influencers to push their product out there, and consumers don't like it. They want to listen to, in this case, women mostly, who are in the same world that they are, that they enjoy makeup, they enjoy doing their hair, they whatever it is, and they don't live in mansions, they have regular kids, they have families, they have life. They want to relate to those people. And if they're going to trips up to Bali and getting Hermes handbags and all that stuff, it's unrelatable, and the consumer starts to distrust these people. Well, as the brands start to push farther and farther into that, our consumers going to start to back away and not necessarily buy from that influencer anymore, which could hurt them. We've got a lot of people who don't want to support that kind of thing, which is fine, and it's oversaturation too. If you got 15 different makeup people on there, it's pretty saturated, but you can handle that. If you've got 500,000 makeup people on there, now it's getting to the point of overwhelm, and where does the algorithm take you, and do you really want to watch, another person talk about this new foundation out? Maybe not, so sometimes this stuff just doesn't work out. It's a much more difficult field than people think. I actually used to be in the movie industry, and so I kind of feel like I have a little bit of a background on some of this stuff, and and it really can be intoxicating, but it's very, very difficult world to be in. I used to work in the talent agency industry, and a lot of the people that I represented, I do see a couple of them actually get some recognition or in movies and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's great, it's, blah blah blah. But I would say I think there's 3 gentlemen that I used to work with that I've seen in things, and we represented like 3,000 people. I mean, that is hard. And so I would imagine this is the same thing. There's probably thousands of YouTube channels out there that are not getting hits very often. And that's okay. I mean, I do this because I love it. I want to help people and educate. But, if this was my primary source of income, I don't know how long I would do that. And that's the other thing is, how long are they going to keep this up? And, you don't want them quitting right before they take off, but you never know. They could just never take off. So, this could be a problem for morale, for that generation really feeling like things can work out for them and they can be successful. So it could be bad as a mental state of mind for that generation. But the other thing it could do is it could really hurt traditional industries. So if you got people going into thinking that they're going to be doing this, XYZ online, it could hurt essential areas like STEM and the trades. I was hearing on a podcast, I don't have the exact statistic, but there are very few people going into plumbing and electrician and that kind of stuff. Those kind of areas, those kind of schools are really getting hurt right now because this younger generation does not want to do that. They do not want to do manual labor, which a lot of these positions, you have to do some manual labor with the work that you're getting. And that's a huge issue. I don't care what AI does, we're still going to need a plumber, we're still going to need an electrician, we're still going to need those areas. And if the younger generation doesn't want to do it, who's going to do that? That's pretty scary to me. They could overspend a lot in pursuing this dream, cameras and gear and all that. That's not cheap. So if you're making $20,000 a year and you're spending $4,000 to $5,000 of it on equipment all the time because technology is always getting better and there's a new thing that you're supposed to be doing, there's a new editing stuff and there's, all that stuff out there, it could be very, very expensive for people to run these kind of businesses. Also, I've heard some of the influencers I follow talking about, not understanding how contracts work and so they get into a brand deal or they get in and they don't get paid on things. They don't fulfill the contract because they didn't know there was an out clause for the brand. So they did the work and they didn't get paid. Like this kind of stuff is very important. And so do you have to hire an attorney? You don't have to, but it might be good so there's another cost. I mean, this stuff can be very hard to get through. So we could have a problem that the older generation is retiring and this new generation, because they are pursuing their dreams, which we want them to do, but they are not replacing the jobs that the older generation is retiring from, and that could be really a problem. Now, this could also be a solution to AI coming in and taking over jobs that we've talked about. So it'll be interesting to see how all this works out. Of course, we don't know. I don't want to be doomsday on it, but I just think it's a really interesting topic. So let's take a minute or two and talk about how are you going to safeguard about this, because I do not feel like this is inevitable, that we're going to have horrible economic issues with this, but these are issues you always have to watch out for. And so you should have these things in place, these guardrails in place for your planning, because anything can happen in the economy. Anything could happen. Doesn't matter if it's this president or another president or whatever. That's not the thing. Stuff comes out of nowhere and can really cause problems. COVID is a great example of that. We're still technically feeling the effects of COVID. I'm going to be doing a video. Need to get this video done. But I'm always afraid to do these super heavy economic videos, but I think it's worth doing about how supply chain works, because I think people don't realize. But in that video, I'm going to be talking about how the effects of COVID are still lingering 5 years later. That is why we're having some of these supply issues and inflationary things happening still. So we'll get into that. So stay tuned for that video. I will do it. Okay. But things that you can do is just remember to keep with the basics. Save and invest. Save and invest. Do you have to invest everything? No. What do you invest in? That's dependent on your plan. But I always say there's two things that you can really control in your planning. It's how much you save and how much you spend. Obviously, how much you spend allows you to save more or less. But those are your two guardrails that you really should be looking at. How much are you spending and how much are you saving? How small can you go if something happens? Meaning your typical, let's say your typical budget is $6,000 a month that you need. Can you make that 4? Can you make that 2, 3? What can you do to go small if you need to? Because during bad times, sometimes we have to pivot and go really small on our spending. And it's worth analyzing how small can you go when things are going okay. That also means you need to be saving. And where are you saving to? Are you saving only to things that you can access after 59 and a half? Or are you saving to other places that you can access money in bad times? Do you have that emergency fund that no one wants to have, but everyone should have? That kind of thing. If you're a business owner, you should have more of an emergency fund than if you're an employee someplace, but it's also dependent on risk, etc. So diversifying your income streams. So if you're a business owner, you understand this. You cannot just have one type of income stream coming in. You do need to diversify what that is, either with the amount of clients that you have, the type of clients you have, or different services and products that you provide. And just make sure that you are encompassing everything you can. And that goes for if you are wanting to be a social media influencer as well. Make sure you have multiple revenue streams to try to even that out for yourself. And make sure that you have tested and have backup plans for if things go south. Okay, whether that's for your business, whether that's in life and you get fired or have to change careers or something like that. Life happens, and having those backup plans ready to go takes a lot of stress off of you because you're not floundering trying to figure out stuff. You have a backup plan, you know what you're going to do, and you execute on it. Is it going to have to be a little flexible? Of course it is. But, we really need to make sure that we've got some money that we can access that's still keeping up with inflation and that we're able to go really small. And you can kind of see everything else that I talked about right there are based off those two things. So that's what I would encourage you if you are not a social media influencer wannabe, or if you are, those two things are still your backbone to your planning and to keep that stuff in mind. So, I want you to think about your personal financial journey. What does your financial freedom journey look like? When do you want it to happen? All those different things. And those are going to really dictate to you how small you need to go, how much savings you need to have, where you place it, all of that kind of stuff. So, do you think that these Gen Z influencer kind of goals are realistic? I do not. But I also think that they're young and they're going to pursue something. I mean, like I said, I was in Hollywood for a couple of years and I realized I did not like the typical Hollywood person. The actors were actually very wonderful, but although they're business people, I did not enjoy, which I did not want to be in front of the camera acting. I don't like memorizing lines. But all the other people I could not stand working with. So I didn't do it anymore. So, this could just be a couple years trying it out, fall on your face, go do something else issue. But I do think that we do have some areas like the trades that are really starting to suffer a bit, and hopefully, the younger generation starts to realize that that is a very noble career path to be in because you help people every day. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be somewhat entertaining, and not too scary. Don't be scared, because things are always going to come up and you just have to be ready for them. And that's what being an adult is, unfortunately. There you go. So stay strong until the next video, and we will see you very soon. Bye-bye.